If it does, run up here and pull cord. Okay.
You ready? Can we just have a few minutes, just because I know some parents are trying to park? Thank you. Here?
I haven't heard.
You didn't hear anything? Okay. Just give me a thumbs up, please, when we're ready. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the school committee meeting for May 14th, 2024. In front of you, you have an agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve?
So move.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. Well, welcome, everybody. It's nice to see some new faces here for our meeting. I'm going to start opening with public comment. This is where you have an opportunity to come up to the microphone and comment on anything that is on the agenda or anything that you would like to let the school committee know. Mr. Dixon?
Good evening. I'm David Dixon. I'm a local person here, been living here full-time for about 12 years. Yesterday, for the very first time ever, the College Board administered the AP pre-calculus test. Students from across the country were taking the AP pre-calculus test. Many of these were juniors. Nantucket had 58 students in honors pre-calculus this year. Not a single student was taking the AP pre-calculus test. That means that not a single one of those 58 students could put on their college application that they were either taking AP pre-calculus, or if they were a junior and did very well on the test, they could tell the admissions officers that they scored a 4 or a 5 on the AP pre-calculus test. Tens of thousands of students across the country will be able to do that. Nobody from Nantucket. This is low-hanging fruit. It's a no-brainer. I've been lobbying the high school administration and the superintendent since November and they still will not put an official AP pre-calculus course in the program of study for next year. At most, what they're going to be able to do, if they can do this through the College Board, is allow some of the students who are taking honors pre-calc to take the AP exam. If you look at how many AP exams our students took in 2021, the pandemic year, we took 222 tests. The last 2 years, we've taken 166. We've gone down 25%, and this year, we could have had 58 students take that AP pre-calculus test, many of whom were juniors. None of them were given a chance, and very few will be given a chance next year. Frankly, we're cheating our students. We're cheating the taxpayer. The taxpayer funnels $50 million into the public schools. We pay $30,000 per student and $100,000 per teacher per year, and we can't offer juniors and seniors AP pre-calculus like thousands of other schools across the country. It's not fair, it's not right, and the people we are especially cheating, in addition to the taxpayers especially, are the students. Because they're taxpayers too. They pay sales tax, and they're going to be paying taxes the rest of their lives to support schools, and we're not giving them the opportunities that any reasonable administration would give their students. It just isn't fair. I've been told that the reason we can't offer AP pre-calculus by the superintendent is because the prospective teacher has to take a summer professional development course at the College Board. I called up the College Board. That's not true. They have to submit a syllabus. That's about an hour's worth of work, sending a syllabus that you're using for honors pre-calculus to the College Board. They'll approve it, and our students will be ready to take the AP pre-calculus. The school committee has to overrule the administration. You've got to stand up for the students. You've got to allow next year's students to take an AP pre-calculus test. You're big on participation, Chairwoman Prost. You love participation in AP exams. This is a chance where we could get a lot of diversity because it embraces juniors and seniors below the calculus level. The school committee needs to take charge and make sure that our students get AP pre-calculus opportunities next year, because we denied 58 of them AP pre-calculus this year, and it wasn't fair.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Permission to speak through the chair, please?
Yes, would you like to come up?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is this in response to the gentleman's comment?
I don't know yet.
Should we-
No, I don't, I will ask. Before I have you just comment, is this in response to?
It is.
Okay, because this really is designed for just public comment.
Okay, I was just hoping to clarify a little bit of information. Would you like me to do that?
I will
or
accept that,
not?
yes. I will accept that.
So, my name is Sherry Lewis. I'm the coordinator of student support services here. And in my previous jobs, I was the AP coordinator. And I just wanted to say that I do agree with what you're saying about the ability to take the AP tests. However, it's not just as simple as writing a 1-hour syllabus. The College Board requires that teachers be certified in whatever AP course they're taking, which requires them to attend the College Board Institute. It is a couple of hours that they need to attend to a couple of days, but they do need to attend that course in order to be AP certified. Then they need to submit a syllabus for their entire year. And it isn't something that can be done in an hour, but it is something that if Dr. Hallett would like, I can work with her on to see if it's something that we can do in the future.
Thank you so much. Seeing any other comment? Not seeing that. Excuse me, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Dixon, thank you. Moving on to the agenda, we will go to Superintendent's report.
Sure. So, thank you very much. This is one of my favorite meetings when I get to turn over and celebrate students, and so that is what we will be doing during this superintendent remarks period. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Mandy Vassal, principal of Nantucket High School, and she will be sharing the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Student Achievement Awards.
Thank you, Dr. Hallett, Chairperson Proch and the school committee. Thank you very much for inviting us to recognize our students this evening. It's always an honor to recognize our students' accomplishments. This award, I have to say, is actually from the Department of Elementary Education, Elementary and Secondary Education. It is in recognition of the student achievement for MCAS work. It's recognized for high achieving students, and this is the second year that this award has been presented by the DESE. I think it's pretty prestigious that of all the students that we had last year who took the MCAS, we have 8 who are receiving that award. That's a huge accomplishment in the number of students that we have coming through. And I am very happy to present the awards to the following students. I don't know that all the students are here, but if you are, please come forward and accept your award. Angie Pena Gonzalez. We can blow. Absolutely. Thank you. Jack Kinslaw.
Congratulations, Jack.
Jeremy Cohen. Garvia Lee.
Congratulations, Garvia.
Olivia Nascimento.
Congratulations.
Merlin Orlana Rivas.
Congratulations.
Stephanie Ramos.
Congratulations.
Ava Watson. And I haven't opened the envelope, but I'm pretty sure there's a monetary award in here also. Not a big one, but a monetary award. We also have one other award to present. We have a senior who was not was not enrolled at Nantucket High School last year, but we have just received her honor of receiving the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship. And in case you don't know or don't remember, that is for achieving advanced in 2 or more of the MCAS tests, and they students have to take 3 for graduation requirement. And that student is Elizabeth Hemingway, and she did let me know she couldn't make it this evening. So that's who we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations to our students.
Thank you, everybody. Congratulations to all of our students. You do not need to remain for the rest of the school committee unless you'd like to. 1 minute to go. Okay. I'll do it all right now. Just want to get. Okay, so little exchange of time. I will talk a little bit about enrollment. We have 1,711 students this month, so we're up by 3 students from 1,708. NES has grown by 2 students, and CPS has grown by 1 student. So we are seeing leveling off, but we may see additional students coming in. Although we are at the end of the school year, so hopefully this will be our ending number. But we'll see how June goes. So. And finally, I'm going to cede this time also to Barbara Cohen, who's going to give us an update on the Seal of Biliteracy, as many of our students, including our school committee rep, who is not here today, have participated in the testing around the Seal of Biliteracy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks. So I'm really happy to report that we have 7 students who tested for the Seal of Biliteracy in Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. And we're waiting for results, but preliminarily it looks like we have 4 students, 4 of the 7 who will earn the seal, and hopefully 2 or 3 more as those scores come in. And we have 3 juniors who've expressed an interest in testing next fall. So we'll hopefully get the messaging out, and there will be many more students who will go. So far, the students who've tested and who've expressed an interest in it are students who have a heritage language other than English at home, but I hope that we'll get the messaging out, and students who have English at home, if they manage a proficiency in Spanish or Portuguese or another language, they will also be able to test for it. So thank you. It's exciting news.
Yes, that's great.
And that's all I have for today.
All right. Thank you. Any comments from the committee?
I have a question.
Yes.
Don't I always have a question? How is the language? How are the languages that they receive the seals in determined? Can the students present? I only speak patois. And oh, that's great.
And the testing is.
It'd be great if you wouldn't mind. Sorry, Barbara.
Sorry, I should have asked before you walked away. I apologize.
So students can earn the seal of biliteracy in any world language. So if you are a patois speaker, you could apply to test for the seal. And a lot of our world languages have tests in 4 domains, so it would be speaking, listening, reading, and writing. But other languages that are less widely spoken, for example, Bulgarian, they just have 2 domains, so that their test is a little bit different. And some tests that are more obscure, the state is allowing portfolio assessments. So it's almost any world language that can be, if you can demonstrate proficiency. It's important to note it's biliteracy, though, and not just bilingual. So it does necessitate a level of reading and writing in that world language to earn the seal. So it's exciting, though. Thanks.
Yes, that is
Thanks for
exciting.
asking.
Thank you.
Any other question?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to presentations, I'd like to invite Sarah Kirk to join us to go through the central registration update.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sarah Kirk. I am the Central Registrar here at the Nantucket Public Schools. We originally centralized registration in June of 2019, so we are 5 years out, and things have changed considerably in that time. Before I get into it, I just wanted to go over something quickly, which is the distinction between registration and enrollment. So every month when you are going through the enrollment numbers, you are looking at students who have walked through the doors of Nantucket Public Schools, in particular our 4 brick and mortar schools. But not all registrations take place at the time of enrollment, and similarly we do register students in addition to the brick and mortar schools. Those students are generally services only students. And many of our registrations, I would say approximately half, actually take place well in advance of the children's enrollment dates. I have just wrapped up kindergarten registration for the fall of 24-25. Similarly, I'm moving into pre-K, so those registrations will take place in the spring. We do try to register as many students in advance as possible when we know they will be starting with us in the fall, provided, of course, they meet the residency requirements. Similarly, we open registration throughout the summer as well as families are moving here and transitioning them so that students can have a seamless start to the school year, or at least as seamless as possible. A few of my goals in the central registration office are consistency district-wide for families and for staff. What this looks like for families is whether you have a child that's coming into kindergarten or coming into grade 12, you will have as similar of an experience as possible, even though the nature of participation in school looks very different for a kindergartner than it would for a student in the high school. Similarly, we have I will offer differentiation to different families that need it. One thing mentioned on this presentation is tech literacy. Many of our families coming into school, into the Nantucket Public School, may not have the same access to technology in the home. And for that reason, it may impact their ability to access information about the Nantucket Public Schools in advance of their move here. I do offer my appointments in advance in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. I speak basic fundamental Spanish, so I can do the Spanish appointments, but we do get translators for our Portuguese-speaking families. We are seeing more of them every year, and when a family does schedule those registration appointments, depending on the language they select, that will change a little bit of how I approach the family, just ensuring that if they do have those additional language needs, that I'm prepared with the resources, additional resources as they come into that appointment. Some of the benefits for central registration. One of the funny things that I saw when we first started central registration was if you had 3 kids registering at 3 different schools, you would have 3 different experiences, 3 different sets of forms, and the nature of coming into the school might look different. At one school, you might meet with the principal; at another school, a counselor. Maybe at a different school, the teacher would be who met you at the front door on the first day. And so things look different now. That is more an enrollment piece and is handled by the schools. But I review the most essential information with families, and the school counselors generally pick up where I leave off, and making sure that families know what to expect once they start school. Also, a benefit is I have taken on a piece that is a little bit superficial, if you will. So counselors, when they meet with families, they can really dig into the educational and the social emotional, the well-being of the student and the family. They don't have to talk about things like school hours, vacation days, and the school calendar, etc. And then, of course, I am one person, so when a family has multiple children coming into multiple schools, it can be overwhelming and daunting to know where to go and who to connect with. But families can always come back to me, and I can put them in touch with the folks that they need to be communicating with. Generally the counselor, but also sometimes the school principal, sometimes the school social worker. What does the family registration experience look like? So when a family walks in, I always take a moment to explain what the appointment will entail. Sometimes when families are coming through our doors, and I'll talk a little bit about this at the end of my presentation as well, I am very aware that I may be in some ways the first representative of though it's municipal, of a government entity that they're meeting with, that they're sitting down with, and their children are present with them. It can be very intimidating. So I like to just explain very briefly, today I'll go through some resources, we'll complete the registration forms, I will mention what specific forms we'll be talking about, and then we'll wrap up with some very general information and expectations. I have found that a few of the forms not always, sometimes will surprise families when we talk about them, and the 2 that I've mentioned here are the health forms, in particular the medication authorization, as well as the permission forms for school technology. I think depending on where your family's moving from, some families don't realize that we have school nurses, that they're licensed nurses, and that we can administer general over-the-counter medication as an option. Similarly, and kind of comically, some families don't realize that we have technology in school, which is always very interesting. But it's important for families to understand that when they're leaving their children with us, that it's not just free time on a computer and the internet. We have specific protections in place. We monitor use. What does that look like? How often are students accessing technology? By explaining these things, I think it gives parents a bit more information to digest, so that when they're actually coming to school and going to start school, that they have they have the information to make more informed questions, to ask more informed questions. I also talk about what happens next. So what I will be doing, which is preparing the cumulative file for families, as well as passing off information to the school so that they can contact the teacher and really get the ball rolling for the student starting school. I end the appointment by reviewing some island organizations, so not just organizations at the school, but also within our community. Here are a few: our Free and Reduced Lunch Program, our multi-language Parent Advisory Council, Athletics Community School, and then connecting families with other resources. Even we had a family last year that, 2 years ago, that they had a new baby at home and were scrambling to find things. And even though WIC was not applicable for the child that's enrolled in our school, they knew they could contact us and get recommendations for, we have a new baby at home, what do we do? There are places that can help. So a few numbers that we have for the registrations year to year. I do want to point out the slight drop from the 2021-2022 school year to now. If you go back 5 years, I think we were making up for lost time in 2021-2022 after the pandemic. But every year I register between 90 and 100, 110 new kindergarten students. We generally have between 20 and 30 pathway students that roll from our pre-K program into the kindergarten class, so that changes from year to year. And then, of course, we fill those spaces immediately. I don't have the figures for the 2024-2025 school year. They change every day, especially at the elementary school right now. And you'll note as well, we do have services available to students that are not attending brick and mortar school. So there are some registrations here that will never have appeared on your enrollment records, simply because those students are only going to be coming and working with our providers, or they will be attending outplaced schools. And finally, there are many nuanced registrations. I've mentioned a few times in particular our families that are coming from abroad, our immigrant families, newcomer families. They have a particular experience that I try really hard to make as welcoming as possible, especially understanding how hard that transition can be, moving not only to a district in another country, but likely to a district that speaks a language that is not their native language. And I always start out by stressing to the family that we are here to educate and support to support students primarily, but also the family. Something of note, for our families that are unable to meet the registration requirements, in particular the residency documents, if they meet certain criteria, such as being an immigrant family, we do allow them to start school, because it is more important that the children be accessing the education. We can work with the family and support them to meet those requirements. Once the child is coming into school, we can support them, essentially. It's much harder when they're at home waiting for that information to come in. And I've heard some really challenging stories of other districts or other states where families have had children be out of school for 5 to 6 months while the parents were simply waiting on paperwork, or similarly being really intimidated, not knowing how to register a child because the school's registration forms were not available in a language that they understood, and they didn't know how to ask for help, or they tried to ask for help, but perhaps did not get the help that they needed. Also, I try to connect families, not just with the schools, but with those organizations mentioned earlier, because it can be extremely daunting when you move not just to a new community, but to a new community that is quite unique, being an island and all. But stressing that this community is a beautiful community, and we are, of course, here to support them. Yes. So, any questions?
I'm sure we do. Chantal, would you like to go first?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that you're a staff of one.
I'm staff of one.
A staff of one.
With great help from other people.
I'm sure. I'm sure we're a team. But do you foresee, as the district continues to grow, possibly needing more assistance?
With the registration process, I don't know right now. I do other things at the district as well, so I could certainly do more registration appointments. I think it might change the other aspects of my job. However, I do think that the trend of especially immigrant families will probably continue to rise. I think, you know, the island at a certain point may even out some just with especially the housing resources we have here. But when it comes to how to support those families when they get here, I think it's, you know, we have a sizable Spanish-speaking population for which we have those resources. I'm curious to see if our, for example, Portuguese population continues to grow, if it wouldn't be services, additional support that we could provide to those families as well.
Thank you.
I was going to ask that you are a one-woman show as well, yes. And how long does each session take, Sarah?
I schedule 45 minutes per family. If it's your third child coming into school, it can be as short as 10 minutes. If I don't need to explain everything and you know more than I could teach you as a parent. But sometimes we register 3 kids, you know, 3 kids at 3 schools in a language that I don't speak. That appointment can be upwards of 2, sometimes 2+ hours, especially if they've requested specific help in the past. For example, at one point we were helping families connect with the hospital, and so time on hold with Mass General at that point. You know, it could be a lengthy appointment.
I'm sure. Thank you, Sarah.
Tim?
Sarah, I wonder how you're handling or potentially handling homeless students.
Homeless students, so when families contact me, they can either reach out to schedule their appointment or they can make an appointment online. I always make it a point to try to connect with them over the phone or at least by email anyway, and just ask a question in hopes of getting a little bit of a conversation. Tell me about where you're moving from. Tell me about what draws you to Nantucket. Almost always in those situations, the family volunteers some information. Oh, you know, we lost our housing here, but my sister lives on Nantucket, so we'll be staying with her. I was, you know, we're normally here seasonally, but I'm expected to be here sooner this year because of my job, so I'm, you know, staying with my employer. In those cases, it is either pretty cut and dry. They don't have housing and are unhoused, or usually it falls under the McKinney-Vento students, so students that are doubled up, or they don't have, I'm sorry, the specific language eludes me at the moment, but it's essentially they're doubled up. They don't have something regular and dependable. And when that happens, I notify our Director of Student Services who tracks those students from there.
And the physicals and immunizations has always seemed to me to be a problem since I hear from a related school nurse. Has the hospital been cooperative in getting these students the appropriate immunizations and physicals so that they're all set up?
I think things have gotten better. I do still see room for improvement. The superintendent has helped connect me with the one of the previous CEOs of the hospital, just to kind of create a protocol when we do have families that are coming in particular those families that will find the process of getting established at Nantucket Cottage Hospital to be a bit daunting. For those who haven't gone through the process recently, you have to call Boston and register with their patient services specifically for Nantucket, and then you have to go to Nantucket Cottage Hospital and drop off your immunization records and then ask the provider to make sure that you're finding the immunization records in the media folder, because if they don't get put into the system, which Mass General doesn't, they will cancel your physical exam appointment. There's a lot of these little pieces that I think it's hard on families. I have a sheet that I give families. It's a cheat sheet of who to call, the order to call them in, what to remind people of. It's still a challenge, and under the best of circumstances, it still often takes families at minimum. I would say right now the wait time for a physical appointment is about 3 months. At times it has been as much as 8 months that families have been given notice that they would need to wait for a physical exam.
The mothership has not been particularly helpful, but I would like to see the hospital perhaps ease that, because waiting 3 months or waiting 8 months is ridiculous. I mean, I can think of ways they could do it, but
Right. It has improved, especially once, the note that I write, that I give to families, they can bring with them that specifically mentions, where to look for immunization so that families don't get skipped over or scheduled and then canceled. But I agree with you. That's it's a bit tedious and cumbersome. For a family shouldn't need to do that. They should be able to just schedule the physical and be seen. And I do appreciate that the Cottage Hospital wants the children to be seen by a doctor. However, a nurse practitioners find generally those are a lot easier to schedule for, especially if you're comfortable being on a cancellation list with minimal advance notice. They can definitely squeeze you in for those, but I think that's something that our families specifically need to ask for or mention that they are comfortable with because of the protocol that they have in place over there.
thank you.
Well, you asked two of my questions, so thank you, Tim. So is it fair to say that that's the largest obstacle of weighing parents down to get a completed registration is the immunizations?
Most of our families that are coming in and having trouble establishing care at the hospital are able to start school within a short amount of time anyway, because they're covered by the Plyler versus Doe Supreme Court case, which basically says our immigrant students, they get to start. If you're missing documentation, we'd rather you be here. We'd rather you be receiving your education. We can help support your family along the way. That being said, once families are in their routines, sometimes it's hard to stress the importance of this. I know our school nurses work very hard to try and encourage families to make sure their children are up to date on their vaccines and to offer help when they can to schedule these appointments. But it is a challenge. And
Thank you. And how lucky for everyone that you are the first face of our district to come in and do the registration. Thank you,
Thank
Sarah,
you.
for what you do.
If I may,
Yes,
through the
of
chair,
course.
I just want to sing Sarah's praises. She has, this is her office. She is the first central registrar, and she's done a remarkable job in this position. It's really important, and I think she takes it to heart that it is important to be a welcoming face for anyone coming in. It is terrifying to be in a new place with a new language, in a new school system that you don't know how to navigate, and then come up to someone who welcomes you and has toys for your children to play with while they're doing the registration appointment. It's really important, and I'm very thankful for her and everything that she does.
Where are you housed?
I'm in the elementary school, so right now the experience when you walk through is the beautiful student artwork, and usually there's children in the library giggling and the pre-K kids coming in from recess. It's just a really wonderful experience. That building in particular is, I think most people were students in an elementary school at one point. They can remember it. It's very, very sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Sarah.
if I may, one more point. We do struggle with the hospital on getting those appointments. However, it's better, certainly better than it has been, and I appreciate, although it's been challenging, I appreciate the principals and guidance counselors understanding that we by law have to allow students to come to school even without those immunizations and without those medical records. We know how difficult that is because it is important to know if there's anything in particular, and we hope to get that information as quickly as we can. Once students are in school, it is more challenging because parents move along with their daily lives, and we have to be rather nudgy with them to say, we really need you to get those things done, we really need you to get that appointment, and we do our best to stay on top of it. So.
May I add a comment on
Please.
the tail of that, which is our school nurses are so amazing. They will translate they will translate student immunization forms into English, and public schools can print a certificate of immunization that they can then bring to the hospital. So that right there makes the process a lot easier for our families, but it's not until the students are in the system that the immunizations can be entered and translated and printed. So the magic space between registration and enrollment is very, a lot happens.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, would Sherry like to come back up again, please, to talk about the Nantucket Public Schools Crisis Protocol?
Sorry, I'm trying to get you pulled up. All right, and are you logged in? Are you presenting or no?
Yeah, I don't have a presentation.
Okay. All right. Any recommendations on what I should do? Plug this back in. We'll look at the screen for now. Thank you.
Hi, so I did not put a presentation together for you because you have the handout in your packet that hopefully you had a chance to review it before this evening. So Dr. Hallett and I worked collaboratively on putting this document together just as sort of a checklist of what needs to be done should we lose a student or a staff member. Over the past 3 years that I've been here, unfortunately, we've had several losses, and through those experiences, we have determined that putting this list together that we can just go through step by step will help us get through the process in a much more manageable way. Additionally, if you look at the top of the document, we specifically will state that we will not close school in the event of a death unless it is something that is catastrophic. I know that there were some questions that were asked over the last incident that we had, and this is also to help prevent any confusion with the public as well. Over the summer, I will be working on putting together templates that will accompany this document. There will be letters that will already be pre-prepared to go out to the community, also to be read to staff members, to be communicated to students, so that as we're dealing with these crisis situations, we're not having to start from scratch and redevelop new policies and procedures. So since you've had a chance to review it, does anybody have any questions about what the policy looks like right now? And this is still in its draft form.
Tim, any questions?
No, I think we're relearning some of the lessons that came out of the rash of teen suicides of a number of years ago. It's sort of a harsh relearning, but I think it's very important to have this down because it does save a lot of agita that doesn't need to be there.
Good point. Chantal?
I'm curious, you mentioned that you'd have, I guess, draft letters prepared. Just worry about like a draft letter in a situation like that of a death or a loss in our school just coming off as being, I don't want to say unemotional, but like
It's,
insensitive.
if I may, I think, and Sherry will agree with me, I think it's just, it's to keep the communication as consistent as possible. The superintendent or principals, whoever's sending out the letter, can certainly put in pieces around situations that are, part of it, or, but we want to just make sure that information is shared consistently. So that's the reason why the draft, it's a template, which means you can make adjustments to it. Doesn't mean, it's not like a dear, stick the person's name, so-and-so. It's definitely, there's an opportunity for some flourishing if we need to.
Yes,
Yeah,
it would be tailored for every incident.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Laura?
Is there discussion around a similar protocol for other types of incidences as we've seen?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm also going to talk to Melissa a little bit, who's I know she's working on some crisis as well. So, I think as we continue to look at all of the different possible situations that can occur, we will be addressing them.
Thank you.
No questions for me? No. Thank you.
Thank you,
you,
Sherry.
If I may, one thing, we will put this to vote in our next meeting,
Okay.
and then we'll officialize it that way.
Oh, may I add one more thing, if I may, through the chair?
Of course.
Is there an intention also to include what the therapeutic aspects of the protocol will be? I know this is in a draft form, but how you will address that in school with the students and staff.
Yes, it really depends on the situation and on how many people are impacted, but typically what we've done in the past is we've contracted Fairwinds to come out and offer support. We've also contracted Mora Holistic Wellness to come out and help us. At times we've had counselors from other schools, past counselors come and help. It just really depends on the magnitude of the situation, but we can definitely outline some resources within the booklet that we're going to put together.
I think that would be a prudent thing to do. Thank you.
May I ask another question? Do you mind elaborating on what you mean by the magnitude of the situation, or how many people are impacted? Because I'd imagine if we lose one member of our school community, that even if that person was here for a week, if that's I think that maybe I'm just a little too emotional. This heart of mine.
So it impacts people differently, and it also depends on. Of course, we all feel the loss when somebody passes away. However, what I'm looking at when we're recruiting counselors to come in is I'm looking at basically the webbing and the mapping, like how many siblings are there, how many grade levels is this going across? Is it going across all schools, or is it going across just one school? So that is what I'm looking at. And then the first day typically I usually have too many counselors come in, which is not a bad thing. I'd rather have them available and not need them. But I look at how many students and how many staff members are using the resources that are available that first day that we provide them. And then we scale back from there and continue to follow up as students are grieving or staff are grieving, and as we move through the process of memorials and funerals and services and such.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that. May I add another?
Of course.
Okay.
I've got a question. Having been involved in too many of these, when you bring in outside people, whether they're clergy, because a lot of our kids are not churched, or you bring in even people from Fairwinds, the kids don't know them. The kids are going to gravitate to counselors that they know. I think that's important to look at. You bring in people that the kids don't know, and it's not helpful. And even bringing in a variety of clergy, the kids that attend church, it means something, but they're still distant. It always sounds good to have Father Wilbur there, but if the kids don't go to that church, they don't know him. And probably Father Wilbur doesn't really know the kids. Whereas our school counselors are rubbing elbows with them all day long.
I think it could go both ways. I know for some students, they're not comfortable sharing some of their emotions with their counselors or with people they know. The same with some of our staff members. There's something to be said about having some anonymity, I can't spit it out, in sharing some of the emotions that you're feeling over the loss. I agree also that yes, sometimes it is beneficial to be able to speak with somebody that you know and to share your grief with somebody that you know. There is an increased comfort level, but what we always need to be cognizant of is what kind of stress this is putting on our counselors who are already overtaxed most days with just their day-to-day obligations and also the grief that they're dealing with. And so I think having as many resources available as possible and being aware of all those different factors is really important.
No, I just remember one of our principals staying up all night with a group of students after one of the teen suicides. So, I mean, they felt close enough to that I thought that was beyond caring.
Yeah.
It was really a tremendous scene.
So, and also to your point, some of the students have said it would be helpful if we had Fair Winds come in from the beginning of the year, just kind of informally to meet with students so that when we do have crises like these occur, that they're already well acquainted and more comfortable with them. So we will look into doing some things like that in the upcoming school year.
Thank you.
And did you have another comment?
I did. I'm just curious how we plan on rolling this out to the community, as much as I think there are thousands of families sitting at home watching us right now. I think in light of everything that has happened this past school year and how information is shared with our families, I would love for them to know, because it's good to hear the planning and the decision-making process that goes into rolling out something like this, and in the event that there is a crisis, what we do and how you go about making those decisions. It can't be easy. I can't imagine being in any of your shoes having to make those decisions, but I think it's really important that we let families know in advance so that there isn't pushback later on when despite the fact that it's there, we don't cancel school.
Right.
If I may, certainly we can find a way to push this information out so that families have it available. It could be at the beginning of the year, communications that we do when we send out packets of information, so that it's an additional policy that's important to them. So we're not asking them to read every single policy that we put in from our policy handbook, but this is something that is important to share with families. We certainly will have it up on our website so they can access it there, but it could go out easily in an early communication at the beginning of the school year, so to speak. So, thank you.
I think it's great that we've got this on paper, so that, because going back to the contagion, the youth suicides, we were flying by the seat of our pants. We didn't know what we were doing, and we made a lot of mistakes because we probably acted out of our emotions than rather what we knew was the best practice. And we had many, many meetings, and Department of Mental Health came down and held our hands for a long time. But now with leaders gone and new people in the seats, this is really good to have, so that when you are gone and when you are gone, that and then maybe even like in the presidents, you have a reason of why you do this. I don't think it needs to be in the document that goes out to everybody, but I do think there needs to be an outline so that when someone says, why not cancel? Why wouldn't they cancel school? Well, these are the reasons why, right? And so, for the people stepping in your shoes later, they understand.
Who was the guy that came down and talked about that? I forget his name, but it dramatically changed how we handled things after the first unfortunate couple of teen suicides.
Robert Mason.
Very good,
Yeah.
Michael. Very
Maria
good.
Tarazi.
I mean,
Yeah, very good.
I think it's important to remember that stuff.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is. So I really appreciate having this down and have it as a policy and protocol.
If I may, through the chair, I have shared the draft with one of our parent advisory groups, the MLPAC. We met last month was it last month? It feels like a while ago. And we went through this bullet by bullet to explain and to hear their thoughts, their concerns, their questions about this, which was really important. So I was glad to be able to do that with them, and I'm awfully glad that we are moving in this direction to be able to share with others. So
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Melissa Devitt's going to talk
See
to us
one
about.
second to get my slides up.
do you need assistance, Melissa?
No, I just have to keep clicking in. Okay. Thank you for teaching me something new, Joanne. Now I know. Now I got it down. All right. Okay. So tonight I'm going to share a little bit about our pre-K partnership that we have started here on Nantucket, and I've been involved in it, Beth has been involved in it, Kim, both Kims, and Mandy. So this kind of came up oddly from an Uber driver that I had a conversation with about daycare and how hard it is to get daycare and preschool on the island of Nantucket. It's really a big problem for parents. So our first meeting, we kind of just compiled all of the different things that we are offering our children on the island of Nantucket. Here at NPS, we have the Pathways program, which is run through NES, and it's a special ed based program, but it also has peers involved in it. And this model is academic based. If you're looking at the private schools, Lighthouse School has a preschool program. The Children's House has a Montessori preschool program. Rising Tide has a preschool program with a waiting list. Small Friends has a preschool program. And Community School does a Ready, Set, Learn, which is a parent and child program. And then we have the Boys and Girls Club that intends on starting a program in the fall. Also, the Lighthouse School also plans on opening another pre-K program. Up in the far right are the things that we don't have here on Nantucket, which are Head Start, which we had in the past, and a universal pre-K. So this group kind of came up by identifying the needs that are below here. So we have a lack of certified daycare options for parents, cost of daycare for families. The daycares that we do have going on in the pre-Ks are really having a problem staffing, so they can't even have more students come in because they don't even have people to staff the classrooms. And then wraparound care. So if they are staying at daycare, some of the daycares are letting out before the people are out of work. So that leaves a gap in time. So if they get out of work at 5 and the daycare is closing at 3:30 because they don't have staffing, then that's causing problems for parents. So for us, we're really not in the business of doing daycare, right? So our role looks a little bit different when we're talking in the partnership, where their role is looking for daycare and how the town can support their programming and what they can do to have a more robust daycare programming for the for the children on the island. We're looking at more through a lens of professional development. How can we help the community-based programs with their professional development? How can we make sure that they're aligned to what we are teaching in kindergarten? And how can we support them with curriculum? Also, we can do what we can within the district for pre-K. How can we adjust our program? How are we adjusting things that we are exposing our students to here and on the school in the district? So our role is a little bit different. We are fully supportive of them and what they need to do to get more daycare on the island, but our lens is just a little bit different because we're thinking of it as the first 5 years of life are really important for learning and growing, especially for literacy. We know that all goes back to language development, and how are those programs supporting our students as they come into Nantucket Public Schools? Right now, Sarah left, but she has the exact data. We have about 30% of our kids that don't attend any pre-K at all. So that does impact kindergarten when they are coming into our schools. So our next steps, as I said, we have an addition of community private-based pre-K programs, which isn't the best, but it's better than what we've had before. So the Boys and Girls Club will add one, and the Lighthouse School will add one. Hopefully those kids being able to attend those pre-K programs will open up some baby spots in the daycare, so it will help out. Exploring grant opportunities to fund the expansion of pre-K. This is pretty interesting because I was just at a federal grant workshop yesterday, and they talked a lot about how the grants coming out are going to target pre-K and pre-K families, and partnering with community-based programming and pre-K to make sure that it's a more robust program within the school setting and for the community-based programming. And also clarifying and educating regarding academic pre-K program and daycare, just making sure that everybody understands there's a difference between what our role would be and what the community-based programming role would be. That's all I have, unless anyone has any questions. Tim?
Well, being involved with two grandchildren that
Yes.
fall into this, why don't we get into this? If all of our community-based organizations are full, we're certainly not stepping on their toes. And I mean, this is sort of what we do.
Yes.
And I just wonder why we don't look at getting involved in it. I mean, I have, again, with the $110 million 10-bed hospital, encouraged the hospital to have a daycare, and obviously they didn't salute it. But I think, since if the community, I don't want to go into competition with the community
Correct.
fee for service, but I do think that if there are 30 kids, let's say there's 90 kids roughly lurking out there, 30 kids that aren't being exposed at all, I mean, that's something we ought to look at.
I agree, and I think that we would just need a lot of planning in order to do it right. I think that it's definitely something that we can reach, but I definitely would want to partner with the community-based programs because we want to make sure that they're supported and that we're all moving in the same direction. We'd have to look at space, we'd have to look at hiring, we'd have to look at staffing. I developed it in the district that I was in before, and I think that as long as you do a good job at the front loading and really make sure that the funds are there and that the funding is going to continue, and if it doesn't continue, then how are we going to support that within our school district? Do I think it's one of the most important things? Absolutely. I think it's something that's important for all children to be able to experience pre-K.
Because, I mean, the finances around it are astronomical.
Correct.
And it's just something I think that we have an opportunity. The community-based ones are full. I agree with you.
Yes.
And we're not stepping on their toes.
Right. Right. No, I think it's something we can get to together as a community. I just think that, there'll be a lot of steps in between to get to our final destination. But money will be a big thing in space, and partnering with the community to make sure that everybody feels included, so it's not like we're here to take all the pre-K children.
Chantel?
I have no questions. Thank you. I know.
I was
Well,
ready for you.
I had them written down and then
I
you
know,
answered them.
excited.
Thank
All
you.
right. Anything else?
I was of the belief that the new school had a pre-K as
Yes.
well.
They may have. They just didn't come to the meeting.
Oh, I
That's
see.
all. Yeah.
Okay.
This is just compiled from those that have come to the meeting.
Okay.
I know that there are a couple on there that are not listed that are out there too. We just don't have the data on them
Thank you.
They have 2 pre-K classes.
at New
Ah,
School.
that's what I thought.
So I have a question, and I don't know if you can answer this, but is it under the Lighthouse School using Corkins moving to Hegarty? What is
Yes,
that?
so that's their curriculum. So
Oh,
we had asked them
okay.
what curriculum they're using
Gotcha.
to see. So right now they are pretty much aligned because that's what we use at the elementary school. Was we use Lucy Calkins with Haggerty.
Yep.
So they are, and everybody is very great about just going along with what we're suggesting for curriculum.
Yeah.
I just think that can be taxing on a on a community-based program that they have
Yep.
to buy curriculum that's extremely expensive, that they're working from private funds. So I think that that's important that we share that with them and they know where we are moving in terms of curriculum.
Do you know if the community school still works with the community providers to help them get licensed?
Yes.
They do. They're still
Yes,
doing
and
that.
there are
Good.
tons of opportunities through the community school, and the community college on the Cape actually will give free associate's degrees and up to bachelor's degrees for anyone going into early childhood education. So that's something I feel like
If
it's
they're over 24 or even if they're under
Mhm.
24.
and all the way up to masters. So
That's incredible.
it is. That's how badly we need.
Right, I know.
We need, so I mean,
Oh,
if you
yes,
really, if you know anyone going into it and they want to be in education, I mean, it's really a good time to do that. If you're going to have your degree for free and then,
But do they have to be over 24?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
If I may through
Yeah.
the chair, I was of the impression that the Lighthouse School was a Waldorf-based. Are they moving away from that? You might not know the answer to that.
I believe that they are Waldorf based, but I think that they integrate different curriculums
Oh,
into
okay.
it. So there's a Waldorf, there's Montessori. A lot of people, even though they're Waldorf or they're Montessori, they still use just bits and pieces of the curriculum. They just don't use it with fidelity. So they'll pick up Haggerty and maybe use it as a small group instruction, those kind of things. I know I've heard other private schools in the area using OG. So they still use programming. It's just not their philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Through the chair, you're talking about curriculum. What about, I'm thinking of daycare.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's even harder.
That's
That's even worse.
That's even
that's
harder.
even worse, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
It is,
again,
And I think looking at our community and trying to look at it as not an emotional situation, but I look at some of the people that I know in the community that are now taking their children to the DR to stay with their moms for the summer because they don't have any daycare for the summer and they have to work all,
Right.
they're not going to see their kids for 6 months. But that's, how can we bridge that gap and help people so that they can have their kids staying here? I only have a wet bedroom, so they can't all stay with me. I take all the babies.
well, we have 130, 140 deliveries a year. I mean,
Yeah,
there's an audience out there.
there is.
And plenty of families' homes are Nantucket, not somewhere else.
Correct.
So they don't have the option of
That's
having
true.
their children go
And
somewhere else.
through our conversations, we learned a lot about women that are just not going back to work, or men, because it's cheaper for them to stay
Oh,
home
right.
and take care of their kids than it is to send 3 kids to daycare.
Yep.
So, and they're not making millions off daycare.
No.
They're
No.
scraping by themselves. So, it's
It's a real
big
issue.
problem.
Yeah,
It is.
it's huge. And then infant care, birth
Yeah.
to 2.9 is.
And there's so many regulations on how many you can have and
Mm-hmm.
the age range and those kind of things. So I think that ties people's hands too.
Yeah.
If I may, I do want to add one point that's coming in around the back end, and that is, I'm hoping that within the next several years, we can look at an early childhood education vocational program that would allow some of our students to build their knowledge. Obviously, it does require space. So that is going to be a tricky part, as we are very tight sneakers at all of our schools. But certainly it's something that we need to look into, because I think we would find students to add to a pathway and potentially graduating, and if we could steer them towards the
The free
opportunity of
degrees.
free college degrees, et cetera, and then potentially we could get them back for working in our community and with us. So that is a pathway. It just takes some time to plan. You have to have a certified early childhood education teacher. There needs to be space. There need to be children to work with. I think we have plenty of those, so we could probably find ways to to work that in, but it does take a little bit of time before you kind of launch into it. So we're working on that, or would like to.
Would that be included in the master plan?
Yes, I suppose. I mean, if we really want to look forward, and I'm just going to put this out here. If Nantucket continues to grow and our student population continues to go up, we are going to need a new building. There is no question. We do not have enough space in the 4 buildings that we have currently. We have some room at the intermediate school. We can create a new classroom within the common areas that they have, the cluster areas, but that doesn't always support what our needs are. It's not necessarily just space, it's also what programming it requires. And sometimes programming requires not just classroom space, but larger areas, larger spaces. So we have to look at education of the future and consider where that is going to, where our current schools are going to take us. So I can't give you a date or a time or when that would happen, but certainly if we have a new building, my hope is that we would be able to then allot space somewhere, whether it's in a new building or in an existing building, to a program like this, and potentially a more opportunity for pre-K classes. So
We won't make you sign a blood oath on that.
I'd like it to move forward as quickly as we can, but it's gonna be a little while from now. Still hoping that we can move quickly if necessary.
But it's a good idea to add it into the master plan,
Yep.
at least start dialogue.
Okay.
Thank
That
you.
it?
Thank
That's,
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to votes to be taken. May I have an approval for the workshop minutes of the school committee meeting on March 12th?
Of
So,
approval.
have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. May I have an approval, please, for March 19th school committee minutes?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
May I have an approval, please, for April 2nd school committee meeting minutes?
Move approval.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. May I have an approval, please, for the transfers and invoices?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, subcommittee, work groups. Who's been meeting and what's been going on?
We've been busy.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot, haven't we?
Yes, we have been. I met with Nantucket Education Trust last week, and the focus continues to be upon housing for teachers in Cow Pond, and we are discussing a barbecue for the residents there, and
Like
that
as an event? you
as an
mean?
event, yes. And we're looking. I believe our date that we have set is June. I want to say 6th. Is that
Correct.
right, Beth? Yeah.
Correct.
So, yeah, lots of work going on in that on that board, which is very gratifying to be a part of. I missed the Cape Cod Collaborative, which Tim, I've been very good at going to because of town meeting. So I was unfortunately not able to attend that committee.
Thank you.
Here's my reports.
Chantal?
Diversity.
Yeah. That's where I was going. Our DEI committee met to sort of work out where we are, where we'd like to go next. I think it was a pretty fruitful meeting. We have a lot of really big ideas that feel very achievable, which is really nice. And it all starts with meeting with I know they haven't been meeting, but the former DEI committee that's made up of teachers and administrators. So we're really excited to connect with them to kind of share ideas and really get moving. So very excited.
That's great.
If I may, through the chair, is there a language shift with diversity, equity, and inclusion? I feel like I've been hearing that there have been shifts in the language of that. Is that news to anybody, or?
Yes. So that's the funny thing about DEI; it's constantly changing. And I don't want to say DEI is new, but it's a fairly new hot topic, and as we're working our way through it, I think you'll find a lot of DEI professionals who will say that they're learning on the job, and as they are, we're adjusting. So it's more shifting towards referring to belonging.
Right. That was what I was aware of. Just, I know there's some new research out there, so curious about that. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, DEIB is a common piece to this, and talking about adding the belonging,
Yes.
which is very important, probably the most important thing, because it starts off with belonging is what you want to achieve, and then you can move towards the equity and inclusion after that.
Right.
Nothing? Okay, thank you. And our student representative is not here this
No.
evening.
Unfortunately, I do not have any notes from her,
Okay.
but we do have a meeting next week, and my hope is that if that she will be here, and if she is not, hopefully I can get some student notes to share. So.
If I may, through the chair, I believe the middle school musical is coming up.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Thursday.
Thursday
Through Sunday?
through Sunday.
Correct.
Great.
Yes.
I'll put that on our list.
It's Susical, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that's great. All right, for our next meeting, which is scheduled for May 24th, we have a guidance update.
Yes,
From-
May 21st, we have a just a general update on
All-
our
all
seniors.
schools?
Yeah.
Oh, just this
I
high
believe
school.
it'll just be high school, yes.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about graduation activities and the schedule. That's important to share so that everyone is aware of all the specific dates and how we are rolling those things out. Food services update. Clearly, we'll be discussing
Is
that.
that Martin or?
I believe it is.
Martin.
I believe it is. It is Martin, and he'll be sharing where we're at with our food services contract, et cetera. Third quarter budget update and audit report is Martin, and then the wellness committee will share their new policy. Mr. Horton will certainly be at the microphone to share some of that along with.
Looking
Enthusiasm.
forward to that.
Yes.
No caffeine.
And that's it.
Okay. Excited, we're getting close to graduation.
Yes, yes, yes. And I want to wish the best of luck to our Nantucket scholars who will be who are waiting anxiously for Monday, May 20th,
Yes.
as they are two are chosen. So
Yeah. I was invited to sit in this very room actually and ask the finalists, the 11, some questions. And
So
it was
exciting.
very, very much fun. Ms. Fassel?
Yes, if I may through the chair, the Nantucket Scholars on the 20th, they're also announcing the workforce recipients. That's great.
Oh.
So they're doing both on the same night.
Same night. That's wonderful.
Trying to streamline the process a little bit better.
That's great. Exciting. All right, well, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deb, did you get that? And it's pretty.
Yeah, that is her name.
Okay, great. I'm so excited you're doing it. It's gonna be great.
Good. No, it's just,
And your spontaneity.
we are very
I just don't want to
I
see
know.
the kids
Oh,
hanging
I know.
around.